Hi, everybody. Welcome to our conversation with what school could be and the Verdi Eco School. This is a pretty exciting time for us, and I'm so thrilled to be engaged with the Deeper Learning Conference, and especially with this amazing human that is sharing this presentation with me today, Ayana Verdi. And so we're going to just go ahead and get started. I am the Director of Global Curriculum, Coaching, and Community for the What School Could Be team, and also work for myself with a company called Individualized Realized. Ayana, your basics and background.
Yes, thank you so much for facilitating, Susannah. I am Ayana Verdi, founder of Verdi Eco School, again here in Melbourne, Florida, and we are a place and project-based school that uses the entire community as our campus.
Awesome. We're going to start just this conversation. We're going to definitely get into a case study mindset and talking about what's happening with the journey for transformation that is happening with Ayana and her school. But to start with, the journey of what school could be began with Most Likely to Succeed. So I'm going to go ahead and share this with us.
We divide the day up in high schools into bits of time, into 40 or 50-minute blocks typically, and then we ring bells and people start to shuffle around the building and do something else. That's an organizational device. It's not an educational principle.
10 university heads in 1890 said, in 11th grade, everyone should learn chemistry. In senior year, everyone should learn physics. A lot of these subjects are great, but these priorities were dictated 124 years ago.
The old blue-collar industrial model of education is already gone. We're already living in its wake.
What happens to society when hundreds of millions of people have that aimless, rudderless feeling of, I've been replaced by a very small box? I don't know if there's a solution.
We all learn in different ways. This isn't the way to do it. This is the way that I did it.
If the assignment is you get it back and you crumple it up and throw it in the trash can, that's kind of one student experience. And if the assignment is to produce something that you're going to present to professionals in the field, that's completely changing the whole dynamic.
We are trying to have that type of perplexity and curiosity get inculcated in our students.
Saying your parents, all your friends' parents, and a bunch of people you don't know are gonna be here to see the work you did. It creates an aspect of authenticity, because we are creating something for an audience.
The things I think in life that give us some of the greatest satisfaction is making something that wasn't there before.
And I can't wait for that moment when it does work and I'm completely done with it. And it's like all leaves. It'll be one of the greatest moments of my life.
The kids have that feeling it's transformative for them. I made this, and everyone's coming to look at it.
Most Likely to Succeed is by far the most viewed education video in the history of education videos. But that amazing production with Greg Whiteley and Ted Dintersmith and High Tech High and other schools that contributed to that conversation led the journey to what school could be. And Ted wrote that book in partnership with Tony Wagner, and it has turned into an amazing journey of school transformation process, because what Ted saw happening across the country as he was showing Most Likely to Succeed to everyone in all 50 states was that there were a lot of amazing examples of this already happening. And that's part of what our conversation is going to be about today and what we're talking about in terms of what school could be. But what it has led to is the creation and cultivation of a community of educators in our own community platform. So in the What School Could Be community platform, we actually have amazing resources for professional development in the forms of our innovation playlists, as well as courses that exist there, and just all kinds of opportunities to learn and to grow. We have awesome community connections where people are having conversations with each other and talking about problems of practice, as well as celebrations and lifting things up and sharing, again, other resources that they have, and making sure that resources are widely available for everybody. Our own coaching support with our team, as well as partnerships with many amazing, and well-respected organizations in the world of education that help to promote this process of coaching and how to help the transformation journey for any school and any organization or any region. And then, of course, our proven change model. And that's what we're here to talk about today. And the journey for deeper learning, and what we're all aiming on, what we're trying to do is make sure that it's available to everybody in a free format, but also in a way that makes sense. And we're going to meet you where you are in your learning transformation journey, because everybody's at different moments in time and where they are with school and how they do it today versus how they want it to be moving forward. And although we get the privilege to talk to Ayana and hear about the building and growth of her school, which is built from the ground up on a lot of the principles that we mirror here, there are also a lot of schools that are in the process and in progress. And we've got to figure out ways to make sure that we can meet those schools where they are and move them forward. We come from the premise of the problem of everybody understands with industrialized education, and that this was designed a long time ago. And it's interesting because we've just celebrated the 7th anniversary of Most Likely to Succeed, and realizing that so much of it is still relevant. So we're really still working hard to get to that place of change that we haven't been. But the school model was designed with all of this in mind in terms of what it meant to prepare humans for what's next in life. And that's really what we're in the business of, human development, when we're in the business of education. But the problem employee was the one that was audacious or curious, creative, self-directed, and was able to think critically. But right now, in the world that we live in, where we have machines able to get us information on a regular basis and really a whole different world of work and mindsets, we actually need curiosity. We need the audacious thinkers and creative and self-directed and critical thinkers. So we've really got to make sure that we're moving towards all of this in what we're aiming on for What School Could Be everywhere. So we try to talk about the change model, and our main ways of looking at the change model involve and mirror our innovation playlist. Specifically, we start with mobilizing a community, and this can be a community of you and just a couple of peers. It can be your whole community. It can be a whole state. And that process is meant to give resources to inform, transform, and energize a community. We move then into the student-driven learning practices, and we ask you to imagine if your students could drive their own learning, what would that look like? What would that feel like? And what would that mean to them in terms of empowerment? Real world challenges, of course, and we think about being future ready and being able to unleash student potential through real world challenges. Authentic assessments is a big part of what we talk about, and we want to make sure that we are creating assessments that capture and spark consequential learning. So where assessment is not the end of learning, it's just part of the process and helps to inform what happens next in the learning. And then finally, our caring and connected communities piece, which are powerful practices that help to create a caring and connected community for your students. And that can be in the classroom, amongst the peers of the students. It can also be within a school or a whole community. And we really believe that that is a strong foundation for what's happening. And if we're not sure about it in 2022, that taking care of each other and caring for each other is important, then we've got to get sure really quickly, because it is definitely important to us. But again, our goal at What School Could Be is to meet schools where they are and help to support the strategies for school transformation. So with that in mind, we're going to talk a little bit more about Verdi Eco School. So I'm going to be quiet for a little while. We've heard me for quite a bit here, and thank you for that. And let Ayana share about just the growth and where the school came from, and also what's been happening. And then I'm going to jump in a little bit, Ayana, in a couple of minutes and highlight what I saw when I visited your school that is working in the transformation model.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I am so thankful for you and for What School Could Be. I know that we had a wonderful conversation with some other luminaries in the world of project-based education during a time where I was feeling really stuck stuck. It's been a challenging time to continue to innovate in education, but also a time where you know that there's nothing else to do. This is the time for us to continue to innovate and think radically about what school could be. So I'm super thankful for you. And when Verdi Eco School began, I had no idea that these kinds of communities were available, for school leaders, for educators to immerse themselves in, to continue to stay motivated and inspired and find resources and dive into what best practices are. So I'm so excited to have this opportunity and just share a little bit of what we're doing here in Melbourne, Florida. So as a place and project-based urban farm school, we are the only school of our kind in the Southeastern United States. So a lot of what we do is really different. And we're using oftentimes a language that's not shared by other schools and other educational institutions in our place. We learned really early on in 2016 when we started that being place-based, being rooted to what's uniquely ours, what we could access, what we could touch, was where we wanted to begin as a school. And we knew that having a really, really strong foundation of connection was going to be necessary. So we did a lot of research around design thinking, around crafting and cultivating a community for the end user being the student, the end user being the one individual within the entire experience who must enthusiastically want to continue the journey. And when we were willing to kind of commit to this idea of following the student and designing for the end user, we chose a great social emotional framework called conscious discipline. And conscious discipline anchors everything that we do. We talk a lot about academics and making sure that students are moving ahead and not regressing. But once you're in the school environment, everything is academics. Everything that you learn offers you a tool for how to live in the world. It's all pertinent. It's all relevant. We don't talk about soft skills here. They're all necessary skills. And conscious discipline gives us a language and a framework and a structure to start with empathy, right? To start with an understanding of what each individual needs and wants. And we shift into this idea of being the guide on the side, instead of the sage on the stage, that we're mostly, especially for people of my age, right, my generation, we're really, really used to that dynamic, walking into our classroom and the teacher is standing up at the front and they're like the encyclopedia, right? They know everything and they're going to kind of stuff you as empty vessel with all of the information that you need to have. Well, the shift that we've needed to make here at Verdi Eco School is a recognition and realization that children aren't empty. They're full. They're full of knowledge and thoughts and desires and needs. It's our responsibility to stand alongside them and to help them to find ways to learn, find where information is, and oftentimes help them to learn what to do when things don't go their way. Right. A lot of the interaction in school is how do we cope? How do we self-regulate? And on our campus, you'll see a lot of those physical spaces. So we, as a school, commit to taking about 60 to 70 field trips over the course of a year. And for us, field trips are a walk down the park to the park, a walk down to the library, a walk to the waterfront to take water samples, but they're often opportunities for us to go farther and to redefine what the boundaries of our community are. And so we have a really great partnership as well with the Brevard Zoo, where our Eco High students spend one full day each week immersed in wildlife conservation and problem solving with zookeepers. For the animals that live within our community. And, we have lots of really interesting conversations about what is place and can a zoo be part of our place? Is this authentic? Students think of all of these wonderful things to question and keep every guide on their toes. But our safe places, our places where students can engage in the work of empathy themselves exist everywhere. So we have traveling ones that we bring to the zoo. We have ones that are concrete spaces that are stationary, that don't move on our campus. And we also have the recognition that even for young students, a person can be a safe place, right? So a 4-year-old maybe won't visualize a chair or a room or couch as the place to go to regulate their emotions, but they may see a person and know that that person is safe and can help them move through those steps. So for us, everything starts with this idea of understanding ourselves, being aware of our emotions, and knowing what to do when things aren't going well. And everything radiates from it. The way we speak about math and pressure in math goes back to the language of empathy, right? It's hard. It's hard when you feel like you don't know how to do something. Just an opportunity to mirror those words to a student who's struggling is powerful. It's powerful. I feel seen. I feel heard in this moment when I'm struggling. And I've only ever had negative experiences with this subject. Somebody actually sat across from me and was willing to put themselves in my shoes and recognize, right now, I'm not feeling so good. And we're going to pause. Maybe we'll take a breath. Maybe we'll take a walk and have a snack and come back to it. There's this recognition that just because children are in school and they're learning doesn't mean we've left their humanity behind, right? If a coworker, if another adult was stuck or having a hard time, will we expect them to ignore it? Doesn't matter that you're frustrated. Do what you need to do. No, of course we wouldn't. We would expect them to self-regulate, to get up, take a walk, come back, have a drink of water. And so there's just this recognition that we need to do more of that work with children and allow them to be human and learn as humans. So that's really the foundation of Verdi Eco School. It's that we're connected to our place, and through our place, we're connected to each other and ourselves. And everything starts there.
I love that. And I love that you have a very clear foundation for what's important to the school. And like you said, everything is built around that and stems from that. And that's one of the, when you think about mobilizing a community, is really about getting everybody on board with an idea of what we want for our outcomes. What do we want? If you're building a portrait of a graduate, that's part of it, but it's also, what is your North Star? What are your foundational values? And how are you integrating those into everything that you do in school so that it can reflect back through the experiences of our learners, which is, as this is it. This is what we're in the business of. And so that's what I saw when I visited your school, is these amazing spaces everywhere. And that's the pictures that you can see on the screen at this point. But really that empathy-based framework really does, it's very clearly a part of every single space and every single room, as well as the way that everybody was interacting with each other. And I was there on a day when there weren't a lot of students, although a couple of young students were there, and they're speaking the same language. They have this very common language within the school culture, and that's something that is palpable and you can feel it, but it also grounds everybody in something that's amazing. The other thing that I saw was these concepts of integrated curriculum. So where it's math, but it's math with empathy. And yes, it's math, but it's math with entrepreneurship in mind. And how do we think these things through? I also love within that integrated mindset of what you're doing, you have this great space around your gardens. And one of the things that was very clear is that I was coming in at the beginning of the term, and you were saying that the first thing that will happen on day one of all the students coming back into term is they're going to clean slate that space. They're going to clear out all the old and get ready for what's new. And what a great metaphor for what we need to do every time we re-enter into our learning environment, whether it's daily or weekly or term-wise, or starting a new school year. Every day is an opportunity for a clean slate. And that is an important concept and tool. But that garden also then translates into you're sharing those the fruits of your labor, literally, with your community through the farmers markets and that kind of thing. But then also everything that is a surplus, you share with those in need in your own neighborhood. Is that correct?
That's right. So as an urban farm school, being connected to community is a really, really important part of what we do. So being part of place, we recognize that there are also the needs, wants, desires of the people who live around us, right? We're not in this bubble where the things that we do don't impact the rest of our community. So we are, in recognition of being part of this place, we recognize that if we're growing food from this earth, that we should be sharing it with the people who also share this community with us. So we have a wonderful bounty share program, and that's when students are growing food and we have, hundreds of pounds of food left over. We set up a bounty share at the front of our school. We shout it out on social media, and individuals come in and share food, no questions asked. And we really believe really strongly that that's what you do as part of a community. There's this a reciprocal, cyclical need for these kinds of empathetic interactions to happen always, because they open up the doors for other kinds of conversations to happen. So we talk a lot about our students as catalysts, right? These individuals are the ones who go out into the community to open the doors to conversations, to sharing, to access, to conversations about our environment and our Indian River Lagoon and, the fertilizers that we use on our lawn and, principles of permaculture and how we can grow food safely while, manifesting the beauty of the land that we live on. But the realization that we have about our students is they are the easiest individuals to work with to develop these ideas of empathy. All of the real work is for us. Like this language that we share starts with us, right? As adults. So we share this language together as educators, as staff. We have our own restorative circles and our morning meetings and our reflective practices, because in order for children to continue to learn that they're valuable, we also have to model it. Right. It's really important that we're giving this to them. So those partnerships that happen, that you spoke about, like with math and entrepreneurship, those are really partnerships that kind of put us in a place of needing to practice these skills. Yeah. Right. To think and share perspective of what's important. Right. Because what someone who's really interested in leading children through mathematical concepts and what somebody who's really interested in leading children through entrepreneurial concepts may not automatically align until they sit down and talk about it and collaborate and create these incredible experiences. The Bounty Share program came out of educators partnering with students to talk about what do we do with this extra food? Right. How do we create a solution out of something that's a problem for us, right? We got this food, it's going to go bad. What do we do with it? It just goes in the compost. Well, that feels wasteful. So these ideas around creating strong foundations of, social emotional practices and leaning into those influencing the curriculum have been so powerful for us. And they've been, in many ways, what has saved us during this time, this willingness to work on, the whole world is not doing what I want it to do right now. How should I respond today?
Yeah, I love that. You also have a really strong, and this is part of what it means to transform a school, exhibitions of learning. So if it's okay, I'm going to go ahead and play this video that talks about this process and share a little bit here.
Sure.
Maybe.
Because I strongly feel that what we do in space certainly can inform what we're doing on the ground, especially as it pertains to growing plants. And advances that we make in indoor agriculture, certainly as people push the technology for that, we benefit from that as well. I'm looking forward to seeing the school and learning more about what they're doing too.
it makes it so much more tangible and real to see that the testing that they do and the failures that they have are the same failures that a scientist has. You see students go to school all the time and they say, well, why do I have to learn this? Am I ever going to use this? For our kids, they're using it. They're using it every day. And now they see NASA scientists using it too. So there's no greater connection and no greater relevance for a child, for a student to see that what they're doing now can make a change later.
I love that. I love that so much in terms of what it shares about just that connection and something powerful. I mean, come on, it's NASA. That's a big deal.
Yes. And students love these opportunities to share what they're learning.
Yes.
You know, it doesn't just sit in a classroom in a book and somebody puts a grade on it. No, I created an exhibition that people I don't even know showed up to talk about a partnership and a project that I did with NASA. You know, so during that project, students were able to grow food and share data with scientists for what to grow in the International Space Station. You know, and so who did we have showing up to that exhibition? Other scientists, other professionals that wanted to improve their practice. So they were learning that, wow, what I just did, this project that I did in my class informed the work of other scientists and people within my community to make things better. So it's an incredible practice and one of the most powerful practices that we do as a school that also translates really immediately to students as I just gave that back to my community. So
I love that. In this process, in our last few minutes of conversation today, Ayana, I want to talk about how we continue the journey, because you're doing so many things right, and you're a model and certainly a great example and resource for a lot of folks who could mirror what you're doing and bring some of those practices into their schools. But I want to get to this place of you are still in the process of transformation yourself. Your school is, because it's a never-ending journey. We don't have anything perfect and anywhere yet. We have yet to see that school exist or that education system exist. So what are your current challenges? Where does Verdi Eco School want to go next? And how do we support that process? What school could be as a community? How can we support your journey moving forward?
yes, thank you. So we are in a place where we're clearing the garden, right? There's that metaphor. What is within our soil right now that's maybe sucking up nutrients that we don't really need to have there? You know, so we're in this process right now of digging in the soil of our school, of our model, of our community to say, what are those practices that are not helping us? What are those practices that are maybe hurting our soil? And how do we scoop them out and put something in that's healthier? What we've struggled with now, especially as we came into the pandemic was kind of like this test almost of our system, of our place-based, community-based system. What will stand up during this time of tumult, right? What will this chaos bring? And initially, we realized that being small and being place and project-based allowed us to be nimble in a way that our big systems can't, right? Those gears are moving and they're gonna move. Doesn't matter what you throw at them, what falls off, it's still moving, right? But for us, we're not a big machine, right? We are a part of the place that we're in. We're organic, right? So when things happen in our space, in our place, we're instantly impacted. You know, that pressure comes to bear and we move. So we learned in our movement and in our nimbleness that there were practices that we'd absorbed that weren't particularly healthy, and that we'd also absorb them from watching the system of which we are a part, right? So even being outside of the system, you pick up some practices that you kind of do just because, well, that's what we do, right? We spend 20 hours a week on lesson planning. Wait, why are we doing that? Is that really helpful for us? You know, so we realized we had some redundancies within our own, you know, kind of organic system that weren't working for us. And they led to a pressure that was too much to bear. It was too much to bear for within this system that prioritized things like empathy and connection to also prioritize these things that weren't connection-based. these things that had nothing to do with joy or empathy or enthusiasm in learning. They're just these things that we do. So we, at the beginning of this school year, somehow the chaos of the pandemic was worse, right? Like that pressure, that tension had been hanging around for too long. And we said goodbye to over 50% of our school family, teachers and families who'd been under this incredible pressure. And it forced us to say, well, we're not okay, right? Teachers aren't okay. Kids aren't okay. What's the most important thing right now? Is it the math training? Is it the project-based learning training? Or is there some work that we need to be doing to prioritize our mental health? And that's what we did. We leaned completely into restorative practices. We leaned completely into this need to meet, to talk to each other face to face, because we were all craving it. There's this human need to see, to touch, to feel, and we'd lost it. And so our weeks started to look different. We, instead of going to school with students 5 days a week, we went to 4. And that 5th day was for check-ins. How are you doing? Tell me about challenges and successes. Reflect. Today, that's what we do. That's all it is, reflection and connection. And we immediately stopped the turnover. Immediately it stopped. The connection was enough. The building of the relationships was enough. But then what do? What's next? Right? Like, so how do we continue the innovation? Because we realize, holy crap, this is all about relationships. This is all about culture and connection. So how do we continue that into learning? How do we provide that for students? So what we started to do is on Friday afternoons, for teachers who are willing, they can have connections with students. And it's called connection time. And you can log on for a 30-minute stint and just connect to someone you want to connect to at school. And 5 educators make themselves available, or staff members, like there's staff members who are not educators, and they say, these are my check-in times. If you just want to talk and connect, let's talk and connect. And students love it. They need it.
It's not like office hours where it's just about getting help on homework or any of those kinds of practices. This is that human connection. And I love that pivot that you made in terms of getting people to that next step. And again, how do you integrate more? How do you build on that and then use that? Because one of the things we talked about a little bit too is and something that everybody is grappling with worldwide. It is not just you, and it's not in one small area. It's everywhere, which is that people are leaving the business of education because it's hard. It's been a really hard time. So I love that you were able to at least, plug the hole in the dam for teacher turnover by just creating space for caring, and then building on that and making that same thing true for students, which also increases retention of, just keeping the students feeling safe and feeling comfortable, and engagement, keeping them coming back. What would you say is your next big challenge or thing that you want to tackle and want to be? What are we going to be working on over this next year together?
Yes. So we need to create a comprehensive immersion program for educators. And it needs to prioritize emotional and mental health and well-being first, right? Not just this idea of, what do we say? Not just this idea of self-care, like make that extra time for yourself for self-care. Yeah. No, I mean, a training program, an immersion program where when I come into this community, this place, that I receive an experience that teaches me what's important in my practice and helps me to develop in my work over time, that I'm honored as an individual. It's not about checking the box for this organization. It's about me. And I lead this trajectory of growth. It needs to be individualized. We speak about this a lot for students, but oh my goodness, what about the adults who are the guide?
Yes.
Where we
meet them where they are too. Yeah. And meeting them where they are in the process. I love this. And I love that you speak to it in terms of a comprehensive program. And bringing people into this process. So, minor plug there. If anybody who wants to intern at Verdi Eco School, call them up. But this is what we can build, is how do we then integrate this and then connect also with some of the higher education institutions and make that space available for these teachers. But also, maybe I'm that classroom teacher in Melbourne and a public school, and I know that things could be different or should be different, and I want to learn some of the better practices. I can immerse myself in your training and your process, and maybe even make that leap into being a part of your staff and education faculty. But really, it's about building it from that ground up of what are these practices? How do we help educators go from whatever their own experience was as a student into what's next in terms of school transformation process, right?
That's right.
I love it.
And
yeah.
The pipeline is super important, giving future educators, prospective guides, the opportunity to make this part of their education before they're in the classroom, that this is a part of their language, so definitely connecting this idea of this experience, this immersion to institutions of higher learning that are also in this place of recognition and realization of how far we have to lean in to this work to help to cultivate individuals who are willing to continue this as a movement, that changes what school could be.
Yeah. Awesome. On that note, we're well past our allotted time. I just want to do a quick just introduction to what the community is and what it's doing and how we're going to do this. The conversation with Ayana will continue on, and we'll make this available in terms of live in the What School Could Be community, as well as the follow-up conversation and her journey towards what's happening and building this amazing pipeline, because there is no better partner I can think of to make this happen.
The word that comes to mind so much is like standardization. Everything is for compliance.
Constrictive.
Sometimes you feel pretty lonely out there.
I just remember feeling like just so deflated.
And somewhere along that line in our traditional setting, I don't want to say we kill it, but we definitely dampen that joy and curiosity that comes so innately in children.
What School Could Be allows that professional learning to be ongoing, but it's also a bit of choose your own adventure. What is it that you need now to support you in the work that you're doing with your students?
It connects communities across the world, not just within my state, but across the state and even across to other countries.
It strengthens the belief that we're in this together.
We're having these great conversations, we're exchanging resources.
You need a network of people to support you, encourage you, and inspire you.
Everyone here is trying to reimagine school, so just ask your questions.
I need to make a proposal to our board on a particular project. I put the question out on the app. Has anybody ever had to do this topic? And does anybody have any ideas? Sure, send us what you're working on, and we'll help review it, and we'll provide more resources like our thinking.
Just seeing that there are these pockets, right, of innovation that are happening all around the world, and hopefully we can join our forces and work together.
School Could Be really provides kind of that extra cheerleader that you need when you feel like I'm ready to fizzle out and quit. And then you read everything that everyone's posting, you're like, no, it can still happen. We can make this work. And then someone you post a great idea, like, that's how we're gonna do it. Okay, let me try this angle.
I have experiences as an educator where I haven't been seen for my strengths. So to find the bear hug that is in the community, that's been great, because I've been learning to trust myself professionally more and get excited professionally more, and that's been priceless. So, and it's free.
There's so many ways we can unlock student potential. This is our opportunity to really just expand and just blow open opportunities for them to explore and be curious again, ask questions, share their learning, create, and just see what happens.
Let's see what we can find out together.
because the kids are ready.
That's the basics of the community, so you can find it. I want to say thank you to everybody who's watching this session, and thank you especially to High Tech High and the Deeper Learning Graduate School and the Deeper Learning Conference for including us in the conversation. And most importantly, thank you to my partner in crime, Ayana Verdi. This has been such a great conversation with you, and I'm so grateful for the work that you're doing in education and also for just the opportunity for us to learn from you. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm so glad to be here, and I can't wait to keep learning.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.